Hello and welcome to a special 4th of July edition of Crypto for Planners. With me is Adam, and Adam, it's a holiday week, but that's not going to stop us from celebrating crypto and America.
No, of course, we're celebrating America this week, July 4th, Independence Day, and crypto never sleeps. International, 24/7, 365. Back in the days when I traded crypto, it was, on July 4th, on Christmas, on New Year's, doesn't matter.
Yep. Just like the aliens in the movie Independence Day, they never sleep. It's always there. It's always present, and you have to be alert.
Exactly. Just like those aliens. And you know what? They don't care that it's Independence Day.
They do not care at all. They do not care at all, but we do. And so to celebrate Independence Day, we wanted to go through some of the major events leading up to Americans' Independence Day and how they might relate to crypto. So when you look at the history of Independence Day, obviously it's where the U.S. Declared their independence from the English, Great Britain, what have you. But there were some major events leading up to there. And I think where it really all started is with the French and Indian War that the British were in from 1754 to 1763. And it really left Britain deep in debt, which then made them kind of want to come after the colonies for money. So when we talk about the French and Indian War, what does that remind you of in the crypto world, Adam?
I would say the French and Indian War, leaving someone in debt. This to me is kind of like the financial crisis, right? Which is, of course, crypto was born. Bitcoin was born out of the Great Recession, the financial crisis of 2008, 2009. And that to me, I don't know if you think so, Steve. That to me is the equivalent of kind of the French Indian War, where that's where most people saw all the kind of shortcomings of the financial system. Banks got bailed out. Most people did not get bailed out. And that's where we kind of see the need for crypto. And again, that's where Bitcoin was born from.
Yeah, exactly. It's not like the government monetary policy was doing fantastic before then, but I think that's where we all see it go off the rails, and really kind of start to shake up the new world order. So I would absolutely agree with that, as it really just changed the status quo and what would work and not work going forward. And as Britain was left deep in debt, they went after their brand new source of revenue, and a very growing and attractive one, in the colonies over in America. So the first of this was the Stamp Act of 1765, where the colonists now had to pay a tax on all printed materials, legal documents, newspapers, that types of things. And let me tell you, the colonies weren't happy. And I think we have some corollaries there with crypto as well.
We probably do. And if I were going to go, Stamp Act, where, people were kind of not happy, I don't know, maybe it's early days of the government kind of shutting down some of the parts of crypto we like, and maybe some of the parts that weren't that great, right? Maybe I would equate the Stamp Act to the SEC stopping all the ICOs, even though you and I both would probably agree most of those ICOs were either just bad ideas on the good end or fraudulent on the bad end. But that was the beginning of government kind of imposing its will on this new technology that we call crypto, blockchain, what have you.
Yeah, and maybe
where do you think the analogy is here? Because I have a feeling we're going to go off the rails in a little while in terms of analogy. So where do you see?
I think that's a good one, and that's probably the primary one. Another one, maybe some of the Bitcoin mining, some of the attacks on it, and a little bit federal, but definitely attacks from various states as far as energy laws and trying to hammer those. So that's maybe another one where they're trying to.
That's a good point. Going after the kind of environmental aspect of it, and then, like you said, the increased tax on Bitcoin miners because of this thought of the environmental toll it might be taking.
Yep. And I think in both cases, it's this brand new, exciting thing where some outsiders come in and saying, hey, you're actually going to do it our way and pay us for the privilege of your new experiment.
Right.
And I think we're seeing similar reactions. And the reaction from the Stamp Act was the Boston Massacre. And as everybody knows, that's where 5 colonists were killed by British soldiers in Boston, leading to the already sentiment there that was boiling, and the anger against the government. And we've had some massacres out in crypto, haven't we?
We have had some bad times, and most of these now are going to be relatively recent. So we could say the Boston Massacre, if we're going towards the one government doing things to, kind of this new entity, this new industry, I would see that the Boston Massacre is probably kind of analogous to, I don't know, maybe what the SEC did with with Kraken and shutting down their staking program to the point that Kraken just said, "Forget it, we're not going to do it." Um, I think it would be kind of akin there. I think that's a good place to go with an analogy. What do you think?
Yeah, I think this is certainly the weakest part in our analogies here, and we'll admit that up front. However, it's the Boston Massacre. It's too good to leave that one out. And so maybe it's more like kind of the massacre of 3 Hours Capital, of FTX, of Voyager, of Genesis, of everybody that really got massacred over the last year and a half. And obviously, you might say, but hey, those are crypto participants, not the government, um, or whatever. And so, but I think really it's them coming after people who are crypto natives, and FTX may not be the best example, right? Because they're more a government actor, I think, than a crypto native.
Right. Yeah. Those are what you're talking about is more like industry imposed, like self-imposed problem, self-imposed massacre.
Yeah, there you go. There
Right.
you
I mean,
go.
that's kind of what it is. And look, I mean, we could talk about it that way. It definitely what happened with Celsius, Voyager, 3 Arrows Capital, which all started with Terra Luna, and then moved forward all the way to FTX. That was very much a self-imposed massacre, which led to the government imposing more things. So we
Yeah.
could put it somewhere in there. And one of those things that the government started with, the SEC started with, was Kraken and their staking program.
Yep. And yeah, you're right. There may have been more suicide than massacre on a lot of those, but a lot of bloodshed in both cases. There's no
Yeah,
doubt about that.
none
And
of it was good.
and during the revolution, the massacre led to the Boston Tea Party. So in response to the Tea Act, so they kept these things coming. It gave the British East India Company a monopoly on tea sales in the colonies, and a group of colonists didn't like that so much and decided, hey, let's dump 342 chests of tea right into the Boston Harbor. So the locals revolt. And so if we had that moment in crypto, Adam, what would you compare it to?
Oh, the local revolt, man. Like, I don't know. The problem is it doesn't necessarily fit from a I guess from a time frame perspective, from a timeline perspective. But kind of the revolt to me would almost be like DeFi summer, because like we have to go backwards a little bit, right? The DeFi summer, when all these tokens got released, when all these DAOs and projects and such started releasing tokens that immediately got listed on Coinbase, and on top of that, you had decentralized finance where you could go trade on Uniswap. You could, you had liquidity, all of a sudden liquidity for tokens, and the government was just kind of running around going, we don't know what to do with this. There's just so much money flowing around. By the way, it's it also happened to be COVID summer, so there was very little they could do about it. They kind of had their own problems. I don't know. To me, that's a little bit of Boston Tea Party, a little bit of the locals revolting and just saying, we're going to release these, whether you think they're securities or not. We're just going to do it. And by the way, we can do it on our own systems to where you can't really stop it.
Yeah, that's a really good one. I think for me, it might be a little bit past that, which is the Ethereum merge. So going from proof of work to proof of stake on Ethereum, which is the same thing you just said, right? It's we don't care what you think. We're moving forward anyway. We're going to do what we want. We're not going to be bullied. We're not going to be intimidated. And we're going to go ahead and, we're going to dump all of our mining computers, at least on the Ethereum side, right into the harbor. And we're going to move ahead. We're going to move ahead with this proof of stake solution and do that. So I think those are both good. There's been some revolts along the way of, hey, you can't stop us. You can't intimidate us.
Yeah, I like that. I like the ETH move to proof of stake, the Chappelle upgrade, and the which went off seamlessly, and that we're moving forward regardless.
Yep. Yep. Absolutely. And so, in light of that independence and that defiant spirit, governments do what governments do. And then the British introduced a series of what are called the Intolerable Acts in 1774. So, for those who don't recall this one, this is buried a little bit deeper in the history books. There are a series of punitive measures enforced by the British in response to the Boston Tea Party. And it further inflamed the tensions between the British and the colonists. And if we're talking about further inflaming tensions, maybe between the government and a group of revolutionaries, we're squarely back in crypto. And these are just a series of acts meant to quash them, and shouldn't be hard to make an analogy there.
I don't think it is, and I think what we're talking about there is the last few months what we've seen the SEC doing is just enforcement action after enforcement action, and it kind of culminates with Binance and then Coinbase the same day, in consecutive days, actions against Binance one day, Coinbase the next. especially Coinbase being a company that's trying to do things the right way, been trying to seek regulatory clarity, trying to be compliant. I think that would be the intolerable acts. What do you think?
I think 100%, and it goes maybe a little wider. Whereas Operation Choke Point 2.0, which is a series of highly orchestrated, highly punitive government actions across multiple agencies were designed to choke out crypto, really remind me of the intolerable acts. Very
Uh,
scripted, very aggressive, and the corollary there is really quite amazing now that I'm saying it out loud.
Yeah, exactly. And we can go back to, specific incidents within there where we had, the incidents with Silvergate Bank, the incident with
Yep.
Signature Bank, where the bank got shut down and seemed like it didn't have to, and then got sold off, except for the crypto practice, where it's been very clear that the government wants no businesses to have any part of crypto. Of course, as we move forward, what we're finding is they want no businesses to have any part of crypto unless they're one of those huge incumbent businesses that have been contributing politically.
Yeah, exactly, exactly. And the British are like, we don't want any colonists unless the colonists, of course, work for us. Then that's
Exactly.
okay.
And,
If
and, and
you're
are
gonna,
paying quite a bit of money in taxes and
yeah, if you're gonna pay all your taxes and keep the colonists in line, then you can work for us.
right.
That's okay. So yeah, what we are seeing is the intolerable acts. I think we need a rebranding in order from Operation Choke Point 2.0 probably. But all those things led to really what turned the tide here in the revolution, in my opinion, which is the First Continental Congress. And this was like, okay, clearly we're under attack. Clearly we're not going to find common ground. Let's get together and decide what we're going to do here. And so that was also held in 1774, of course, in Philadelphia. And so, Adam, I would say we maybe don't have an analogy because this hasn't happened yet. We haven't had that moment where, hey, let's gather up and figure what we're going to do, because it seems still pretty spread out on everybody's still kind of in their own Twitterverse, figuring out what they want to do. But what could possibly be around the corner in crypto that would be like a First Continental Congress to get this whole movement maybe a little more organized?
I think we're getting to that point. I think we're kind of in this galvanizing state within, of course, the crypto industry. But what we're also seeing, Steve, is crypto being very international, right? We're obviously talking about U.S. Independence Day, but crypto being very international. You're seeing a series of regulations and laws being passed and being talked about around the world, such that people all over the world can be part of crypto. People all over the world can actually participate in the system that's being built in a way that is compliant, in a way that is safe. So we've seen it in Europe. We are seeing it now in the UK. We've seen it in Dubai, Singapore, Hong Kong, Brazil, and hopefully, soon in the US. But I think that's where we are, because it doesn't. What you and I have talked about has been very US centric. But what we're seeing is the rest of the world going, look, we need to kind of have some common sense regulation. And it looks like all those different regulatory bodies are looking at each other and kind of copying and pasting or taking pieces from the other, such that it'll all work together. So I think we're getting to that point. We're getting to that First Continental Congress where, yes, all these governments are acting independently, but they're all kind of looking at what the others are doing and going, how is this going to interact? How is this going to work together?
Well said. Well said. I wouldn't have anything to add to that. So we promised to keep a short version on 4th of July. Maybe not going to happen so much. However, Adam, I think we should end with movie recommendations for everybody who maybe has taken some time off this week, needs a little help, what to throw on the TV and enjoy with the family over Independence Day. What would you recommend?
Well, there's always Independence Day, right? Because I remember going and seeing Independence Day years ago on July 4th at like midnight or something like that. So Independence Day is always a good one. And I'm fairly certain some channel like AMC is going to have their Godfather marathon, which is my favorite movie and my favorite series. So I always recommend the Godfather if you're hanging out watching. And one last recommendation, Super Americana is The Sandlot, mainly for the scene in the Sandlot when the kids get their one night game under the fireworks.
Yep. Yep. Well, you stole mine. I was going to go with The Sandlot. That is the best 4th of July movie. Family friendly. Yeah, lots of 4th of July going on. So yeah, I think I'll just second yours. I never thought of The Godfather as a Independence Day movie, but
Yeah, well, it's a fun story about an Italian family that comes to the U.S. and does well.
it is. It is.
Whether or not they do well legally doesn't matter.
And if you're on TNT looking for that, you'll obviously find the Shawshank Redemption playing as well. And that's a pretty good redemption story, an independent story as well. So maybe watch that as well. All right, we'll leave you there with those amazing movie recommendations. This has been a fun Fourth of July edition. We wish everybody has a great holiday. And Adam, thanks for joining me. This was fun to do.
Great. Yep. Everyone, great, safe holiday. Thanks for having me, Steve. And we'll see you again next week.